So, of course, it was International Women's Day a few days ago, and I've been thinking about the issue of women's rights, but particularly feminism and third wave feminism in particular. Yeah, this is something I have made a few videos on previously. I've had a number of interactions with self-described feminists over the years. And recently, I had civil but testy exchange with, by which I mean it was polite, but clear they had a difference of opinion, with French acquaintance of mine. She's a feminist and she was quite outspoken in certain things. She misinterpreted some things I was saying, whether that was a language issue or not, I don't know. But we had a bit of an exchange about that because I'd spoken about some double standards as I see them in political discourse. But I think there is a number of interesting talking points around this. Let me just say from the outset that the principle of feminism, that is the belief in equality for women and girls, I absolutely support as a principle, as a concept. So I've never looked at this from a kind of socially conservative or religious perspective, like women should know their place or women shouldn't do this or that. I am an egalitarian, and with that, I believe that men and women should have exactly the same opportunities. Um, there's obvious situations where there may be gender differences, like a woman cannot be a penis model, for example, and a man probably couldn't be a midwife for obvious reasons because it's dealing with a woman in a fragile state, etc. There's certain areas, very small number of areas that would be exclusively to one sex or the other. But as a general principle, I totally support equal opportunity. And with that, I therefore advocate equal responsibility. So, one of my main issues with third wave feminism, and I have to keep saying that rather than feminism, because I'm not anti feminism, I'm anti third wave Western feminism insofar as I think it's just become a male bashing movement, to put it bluntly. I think that's what it is. Um, one of the points my French acquaintance, I don't know if we're friends anymore, but one point she raised was, oh, well, you think things are perfect for women and just because we don't live in a war zone, because I'd made the point about Western feminism. Well, that's not my position. I don't believe that there aren't any issues that women face more than men do. There are. Um, and I think the Me Too movement has a lot of justification behind it. It's good that Weinstein was convicted, and hopefully that will give some closure to some of his victims, and hopefully it will also be a case of learning lessons about no matter who the individual is, no matter how powerful, no one should be above scrutiny, and um, women shouldn't be ignored when they make claims. They shouldn't be dismissed as looking for attention or loose or anything like that. So I do think some important lessons have come from the Me Too movement. I also think it went a bit too far. I think it started conflating serious sexual assault and rape with genuinely innocent situations in which even the woman involved said that she didn't see any issue with it. So that's an issue I take with the Me Too movement. It kind of lumped everything in one bracket when it clearly isn't the same. Um, I I want to talk about a specific thing though, which is trying to have an exchange with third wave feminists. Now, like I say, when I had this particular conversation, it was civil enough. We weren't calling each other names, but the tension was there because we had strong differences of opinion. She was either misunderstanding what I was saying or deliberately misinterpreting it, which was mildly irritating. But I wasn't too bothered because I noticed that two other women that I'm connected with, women, one from Canada, one from Australia, and I know one of them calls herself a feminist, actually kind of um, advocating my side of the argument. They didn't really get into it, but they were liking my comments. So it's just kind of a symbolic of the trajectory that I was on. It wasn't. You see, what I find very depressing about this whole thing is it ends up being framed as a battle of the sexes. Like, you must believe this because you're a man. And this is fundamentally the problem. I find that when you try to engage with this sort of feminist, someone who is so, um, it's kind of another form of identity politics. Um, it's like trying to debate with someone on racism when they are convinced that you're a privileged white man. So whatever you say, even if you're agreeing with them, you are the natural enemy. I find that is the mentality of third wave feminists. If you're a man, basically you either slavishly agree with everything they're saying, otherwise you're a barrier. And they're not necessarily going to call you a sexist pig, but the insinuation is if you don't slavishly agree with them, then you don't care about women's rights. And you are somehow turning a blind eye to rape and abuse of women, um, and other issues. I think that's ridiculous. And this is why I find it so tiresome to try and debate with someone with this sort of mentality, because they are immediately coming from a defensive viewpoint. They're immediately coming from this idea, oh, well, he's a man, so he's not interested in women's rights. Unless, of course, it's a man who virtue signals and just slavishly agrees and wears one of those silly t shirts saying this is what a feminist looks like. Um, this is kind of the problem. You can say that you support equal opportunity. You can say you support anti-discrimination legislation. You can say that you have voted for women. So it's not a case of you don't want to see women in power. You can make all those points, but they will still say that they will still come at it with this point of, oh, well, I have to just put my little feminist pitch in. It's because you're a man. It's because I'm a woman. It's just so nauseating to try and get some sort of halfway point with someone like that because they're not interested. All they're interested in doing is playing up the narrative that you are a man, you have the power, so your opinions don't count because you've got the power anyway. What they ignore is there are actually areas that disproportionately impact men. And it almost sounds like a checklist to go off at this point because I know that men's rights activists often raise these issues, but the point is feminists in this country have actually tried to. I'll give an example. Jess Phillips took issue with International Men's Day. International Men's Day which is a relatively recent development, it's a very useful occasion to raise awareness of issues that impact men, such as male suicide rates, such as the unfairness of family courts, such as the situation for rape defendants who turn out to be innocent. They get named in court, whereas a false accuser doesn't. So there's a lot of issues, and there are others. Those are just some examples, some topical examples. Now, Jess Phillips took issue with the very idea of International Men's Day. And I'm not saying that she actually supports male suicide or anything like that, but she's an example of a third wave feminist who cannot fathom the idea that actually there are things that impact men too. Or if she does, and it isn't just her, she's just a prominent example. If they do acknowledge that, then they don't do a very good job of showing that they do. Because they simultaneously say, oh, well, it's a patriarchy, men have all the power. I would make this point. If men have all the power, then why is it so difficult to publicly criticize feminism? Why is it that if a male politician was to criticize feminism, and I'll give an example of this, Dominic Raab, all he had done was at one point said he disliked the double standards of third wave feminism, which a lot of people would agree with. I mean, a lot of people would agree with that observation. So for that, he was accused of having a woman problem, even though, as far as I know, he has never advocated violence against women. He's never tried to condone rape or anything of the sort. So the feminists went out to destroy his reputation simply because he had disagreed with them. that he had taken issue with their double standards. Because at its core, actually, I think third wave feminism has become something different from just an egalitarian movement. There are legitimate issues like the Me Too campaign, but there are also a lot of things that third wave feminists make issue of that really, firstly, could be gender neutral. That is, things that impact men and women. They try to make out that it's only women that get impacted, such as sexist jokes, for example. Well, why is it okay for women to use patronizing terms for men? Older women, for example, I've had that. No, I'm not going to run to the police over it. It doesn't particularly bother me. I don't particularly like it, but I'm certainly not going to make a big issue out of it. Um, but anyway, that's just a loose example. There's many other things. I mean, we talk about violence against women, and it is repugnant. As a man, as a human being, I find that abhorrent. And there is a reasonable argument that the average man is more physically strong than the average woman. So there's an obvious common sense aspect to that. However, how often do you see third wave feminists condemn violent women? They talk about they demand equality, but when it comes to women in prison, the vast majority of inmates are men. Yet you hear feminists try to lobby the government to jail fewer women, even though the vast majority of inmates are men. I think in this country, and these are not precise figures, but it's something like we have around 100,000 inmates. I believe it's something like 90,000 men and 10,000 women, or it's even the ratios even. I think it's only like 5,000 women or something like that. The point is, it's a significantly lower number. Now, it may be that overall women are less involved in violent crime, but I also think that feminists ignore the fact that if a female offender is a mother, she is likely to avoid a custodial sentence for that reason alone, even though she's clearly a bad mother. Um, how's that any different from a father going to jail? I think there's issues like that that they seem to disregard. But the thing I really, really dislike about this is this deep intolerance. There's actually a totalitarian aspect to it. This idea that you cannot question the movement, as if it's the only movement that should be above criticism, as if you draw questions to it, if you ask them about double standards, if you raise those sort of issues, then you're somehow against women's rights. I think you can endorse a belief, you can endorse a viewpoint, you could support a viewpoint, you can even support a movement without supporting every aspect of it. And it's this black and white mentality that I really dislike about third wave feminism. It's all or nothing. In other words, you have to agree with them, with everything they say, otherwise you're an enemy. You're standing in the way. So there is a deep intolerance with that. And it can even extend to a form of bullying because they want to defame anyone who disagrees with them, not just men, other women as well. If you have a celebrity woman who says she's not a feminist, you can be damn sure Tumblr feminists will bombard her with angry messages about how she's betrayed sisterhood. So I take a pretty dim view of them playing the victim when it comes to one-on-one debate, or when a man is saying, "Look, I recognise there are issues that impact women. I just don't support the sort of double standards you're promoting. Like you want equality plus. You cannot demand equal treatment and then say, oh, but she's a woman, she shouldn't be treated that way." I mean, I saw a feminist on one of those American talk shows. I forget which one now, but she was commenting on that aviation incident where there was a dispute between a man and a woman over the reclining seat. In the grand scheme of things, it was quite trivial. But the feminist attitude was not, she didn't look at this as two passengers having a dispute. She immediately said, "What's happened to chivalry? What a pig." And she was saying this on air. Um, so this is another thing I deeply dislike about third wave feminism. They make everything, they make every damn thing about men versus women, about gender. They cannot reason that actually some situations have got nothing to do with that. You know, if it had been a man reclining a seat, would this feminist have said the same thing? Of course not, because they're a double standard. Because they think that women should get special treatment. It's not about equal treatment; it's about special treatment. Now, like I say, there's certain circumstances regarding physical strength where it's just a common sense thing. But in terms of how you treat people, I'm sorry, but feminists can't have it both ways. They can't simultaneously say we don't want to be patronised with strong, independent women. Oh, but by the way, what's happened to chivalry? Don't treat us equally. Treat us in a special way because we're women. You know, it's simple. If you're a decent human being, just treat people consistently. I mean, even you can look at this in the domain of politics. If a male candidate's going up against a female candidate, particularly high level, like say, I remember actually when Biden debated Palin at the vice presidential debate, all the commentary on both sides of the aisle was about how he had to tread carefully because she was a woman. Now, as it turned out, Biden won anyway, because he gave far better answers. But the point is, they were immediately, the media, I think, is responsible for stirring a lot of this up. They were insinuating she should be treated differently solely because she's a woman. Well, equality means equality. So, you get this in the media all the time. For all this talk about women are kept down by the patriarchy, all you have to do is open a national newspaper, particularly a left leaning national newspaper, and I guarantee you will find at least one article talking about, from a feminist talking about how they're kept down by the terrible patriarchy and about how women can't do this, women can't do that. And it's a very gloomy outlook. I don't think it's very inspiring. I respect those women who really don't hide behind their sex. And actually, it's worth mentioning that our two women prime ministers, Margaret Thatcher and Theresa May, I think one reason they were successful, okay, politically speaking, Thatcher was a lot more successful than May, but in terms of getting to the top, neither of them overly stressed feminism, May a bit more than Thatcher, but less so than the Labour side. Labour women seem to think that they should be in a position because they're women. And it's not that I don't think any of them are capable, but this is the pitch that you hear from Labour feminists. It's time we had a woman leader because we need a woman leader. Well, yeah, Labour probably does need a woman leader, but it should also be because she is capable and can be a strong leader that brings the party in the right direction. This idea, vote for me because I'm a woman, it's patronising to women, and it's ridiculous because it's actually saying that women aren't capable of standing on their own two feet. It's like treating women like children. And as for the argument, oh well, there isn't equity because of the, and they'll talk about the numbers like there's more male MPs. It's like any profession. What you cannot force women to become MPs. You cannot force women to become firefighters or soldiers. I think the opportunity should be there. You know, so if there are particular issues that mean that women are put off, those need to be addressed. But as a general principle, I really don't think anyone should be elected on anything other than their politics, their electability as an individual, and what they can deliver. I don't think anyone should be voted for because they're a man or a woman, because they're black or white or whatever. And what I find disappointing is even the right is playing this identity politics game now. These accusations against Priti Patel over bullying, some on the right are claiming, oh, well, it's only because she's an Asian woman. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. So, and I actually saw, I think it was in the Times, it was an article saying, yes, women can be bullies too, but are women treated differently? Are women more likely to be accused of bullying? I would say it's the exact opposite. I would say men are more likely to be accused of bullying because, well, they're overbearing men, you know? So I just get fed up with this sort of woe is me attitude from feminists. It's always, every damn thing is about men versus women. They cannot look at any situation without saying, "Oh, it's because of the patriarchy. It's because women are kept down." Not everything is about this issue. Many things have nothing to do with it. Many things impact men and women roughly equally. So that's what I dislike about their thinking. I'm not saying they shouldn't raise issues that do impact women. I'm just saying that how can you reason with someone who looks at you as the enemy, no matter what you say or do? You can't. You can't meet them halfway because they're not interested. And I'm talking about a particular kind of feminists. I know of other feminists who are more open minded and reasonable, and they work with common sense rather than constant victimhood narrative. And I do emphasize Western third wave feminism. There are parts of the world where women really are treated like second class citizens. I mean, there is tangible, strong evidence for that. So that goes without saying. Right, I'll round this up. If you're a feminist, you're probably not going to like this video. You're probably going to say that, oh, I'm a man, what do I know? But I'm talking about experience I've had with trying to debate feminists, trying to meet them halfway. Everything you say can and will be used against you. It's just tiresome, really. And I will say this, you will never ever win people over by trying to shame them. So the technique that feminists have been using for the past 10, 15 years has been just male bashing. It's just about men should be ashamed, until men change this, until, pluralize men in general, treating all men like one contiguous demographic. That's why I think male feminists are kind of, they're not really respecting themselves because they're pandering to a movement that doesn't respect them. They're not being treated as allies. They're just useful because they agree with everything third wave feminists are saying. So they're just kind of useful allies. I would challenge a male feminist on a simple point. If you're simply an ally, if you're simply endorsing the movement because you do believe women have it tough, can you openly disagree with one of your female comrades in arms? Can you disagree with her? Try it. See what happens. You'll be accused of not being a true believer. So I just don't think I don't see what merit there is. It reminds a bit of certain white liberal to at the 200th anniversary of the abolition of the slave trade. They actually wore T-shirts saying "I am sorry," and they literally got down on their knees and begged for forgiveness from I don't know who. Certainly no living people who were directly involved. It just that sort of virtue signaling I have no time for. I'm not talking about trying to be a decent person and standing up for your beliefs. I'm talking about just uh, I really can't respect that. That's just me. Thanks for watching.